Hello, welcome everyone to this live panel discussion and Q&A focusing on two of our postgraduate MLitt programs here at Glasgow, the MLitt Art History and the MLitt Technical Art History. So we're really happy that you are able to join us this afternoon. What we're going to do is first do some introductions, and then I'll talk a little bit about History of Art at Glasgow and the two MLitt programs, and then we'll get to our panel discussion and our Q&A. Please feel free during the whole session. We'll be here for about 45 minutes to an hour to put questions in the chat at any point, and we'll address them as we go, but there'll also be time at the end for additional questions. So let's get going with introductions. My name is Diana Presciutti. I'm a professor of history of art at Glasgow, and I'm also head of subject. And my specialism is Italian Renaissance art. And maybe I'll go next to John, and then we can introduce our student panelists. So John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Diana. Hi, I'm John. I'm the Dr. John Burnhill. I'm the convener of the MLitt in Art History, and my research interests are predominantly 18th and 19th century British art, with particular interest in landscape. So I'll introduce to one of our current students, Francesca.
And maybe Francesca and all the students, if you could say maybe where you're from, as well as your name and what program you're on. Although I know it appears in the little tag, but just so people know.
So I'm Francesca, and I'm a MLitt art history student. I'm from Ardrossan, so I don't stay in Glasgow, but I do commute in. And I've been recently researching 19th century paintings of Italian brigands. So a little bit different for me, but it's very interesting.
That's great. Next is Carolyn.
Hi, my name is Carolyn. I'm from Philadelphia, and I'm in the MLitt in Art History program. And my research interests are French architecture, specifically Gothic cathedrals, like 12th and 13th century.
Great. Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm from California in the United States, and I'm part of the MLitt Technical Art History program. And my most recent research project has been understanding imaging techniques for a 4th century piece of parchment. Yeah.
That's great. Okay, and Faith.
I'm Faith. I'm from Aberdeen, and I'm part of the MLitt Technical Art History course. And my research is based on Jacobite print propaganda.
Excellent. So we've got a nice mix here of the MLitt Art History and the Technical Art History students. So for those of you who are offer holders or applicants on either of those programs, you can just put questions that you might have for our student panelists in the chat, and we'll be able to get to those as we go through the 45 minutes to an hour that we have with you. So first, before we get into Q&A and some questions for our student panelists, I thought I'd give a little bit of background about history of art at Glasgow and the university more generally. So Glasgow it's a large multi-faculty university, and it's nice because it has a campus that's contained. Oftentimes large universities, especially in the United Kingdom, end up kind of being spread around the city, but we're all in basically one place in the west end of Glasgow, which is the beautiful part of the city. It was founded, the university, in 1451, and for the Americans, I realize we have a 50% American group here, which is kind of interesting, but for the Americans, that's incredible to have a university that's that old. So it's 1451, and it's the 4th oldest in the United Kingdom. It's also part of the Russell Group of research-intensive British universities and ranked in the top 100 universities worldwide. And History of Art at Glasgow, it's a large department. It has over 20 members of academic staff, or faculty, as it's known in the US. History of Art at Glasgow it's unusually interdisciplinary in its approach to research and teaching. We have a strong emphasis on objects, materials, and making. Particular strengths of history of art include 19th and 20th century European art, also early modern, like medieval, material culture, including dress and textiles, art market studies, conservation, heritage, and technical art history. So quite a range, but really centered around objects and thinking about objects and making and materials and meaning. And this focus on objects and making really stems both from our really extraordinary local collections that we have access to here in Glasgow, and also from the fact that history of art incorporates what's known as the Kelvin Center for Conservation and Cultural Heritage Research. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. It's important because technical art history in particular is headquartered in that Kelvin Center. So we're really lucky here at Glasgow to have our fantastic campus museum, which is known as the Hunterian. And as well as that, we've got the Kelvin Hall Collections Access Center, which has works where works from the Hunterian collection can be examined by students in class. And we have as well the Kelvin Grove Museum at the edge of campus, and then lots of galleries and museums elsewhere in the West End and across the city. And I would encourage, if you're interested, I would encourage everyone to follow either or both History of Art and Technical Art History on Instagram, because we'll have lots of features showing some of the visits that students do to the Collections Access Center, as well as to local collections here in Glasgow and beyond. So the accounts, I think we're going to post them in the chat for our Instagram, are for History of Art is U of G Art History, and for Technical Art History is Tech Art Hist. The other key facet, and the reason we have this object-centered curriculum, is the Kelvin Center that I mentioned, which Technical Art History is based in. And this center offers a postgraduate study in Technical Art History, textile conservation, and book and paper conservation, which is really extraordinary to have this kind of combination of different resources all in one place. And we also benefit History of Art from being part of the School of Culture and Creative Arts, which includes theater, music, TV, film, and culture industries. And there's always something kind of going on in the school, including the Interdisciplinary Thinking Culture program, which also has an Instagram, which is run by Dominic Patterson, a professor of contemporary art history in the department. And in History of Art, we also run a research seminar series throughout the year, which has receptions afterwards and is a nice chance for postgraduate students to meet each other across the different programs, as well as a 3-day postgraduate symposium in May, which is actually coming up, and which our student presenters will be, our panelists will be preparing for, where we have students from all of our PGT programs give presentations. So that's just a little bit about the department and the university. I'll say now just a couple of, a bit of background about the two programs that we're discussing today, and then we can get into some of the questions with our students. So firstly, I should just say, for those of you who are not from Scotland, that these are MLitt programs, but that's basically the equivalent of an MA. So it's a bit confusing, but in Scotland, the undergraduate degree is called an MA. And so then the postgraduate degree is an MLitt. So MLitt equals MA for the purposes of understanding what we're talking about. And they're 12-month programs. The MLitt Art History is a flexible course that allows you to engage with a broad range of methodological and chronological perspectives in art history. It's got one core course in the program, which is Interdisciplinary Research Methods and Skills. And then it's got 5 optional courses followed by a dissertation. And the dissertation will be written under supervision of one of the members of staff. The optional courses are research-led, and they change every year. So what you see on the website this year might be different next year. Every year, members of staff will offer different courses based on their research interests and specialty. Areas of focus in the optional courses, which John can talk about more as and when, because this is the program that he runs, include place and the environment, museums, exhibitions in the art market, heritage and material culture, as well as other topics. And there's also the option within the program to apply for a work placement, which is something our student panelists can talk about a bit more. The MLitt Technical Art History is, Technical Art History is a burgeoning interdiscipline, a discipline within history of art that combines expertise from art historians, conservators, and scientists. And the program here at Glasgow is part of the Kelvin Center, along with programs in textile and book and paper conservation. And the technical art history program is structured around 6 core courses, followed by a period of object-based research and a dissertation similar to the MLitt art history. Both courses have the research methods and skills as part of their structure. And that course is also taken by students on the dress and textiles MLitt. So there's an opportunity with that course for those 3 programs to come together. And the technical art history program also includes a 2-semester sequence focused on artistic techniques and materials that runs from historical techniques in the first semester to modern and avant-garde techniques in the second semester. And then there's courses like the authentic artwork, which focuses on case studies and addresses issues around authenticity in art, and testimonies on artists' practice that looks at documentary and visual sources that testify to artistic practice in both historical and contemporary periods. And there's also work placements as part of the technical art history program. So that's just a little bit of a kind of very quick run over of the 2 programs and how they differ. So MLitt art history is an art history degree that's quite flexible. Technical art history is much more structured and focuses on this interdiscipline of technical art history, in particular materials and making and understanding how artworks are created, processes, materials, artistic choices, etc. So I've done a lot of talking, and so I'm keen to hear from other members of the panel. And so I think we can kind of move at this point to that. And I don't know, John, if there was anything I've left off that you want to mention.
Just picking up on your point, Diana, about it's a large department for art history in the UK, and that means we do have an awful kind of broad range of specialisms and research interests across the subject area, which is reflected, I think, isn't it, in the courses that we offer as well, which, as you say, are very much research led. That we have interests not only from a broad kind of chronology from medieval through to contemporary art, but also in a range of other subjects such as art and law, as well as the technical areas that you've highlighted, and also dress history as well. Is there anything I'm missing out there, Diana?
No, absolutely. That's good. Yeah, no, and it's we have to kind of think about all the different. It can be kind of overwhelming, all the different areas that people are working. And I'm just thinking of some of the medieval courses that were on offer this year, looking at cross-cultural interactions across the Mediterranean, death and dying in Northern Renaissance art. So it is a broad mix, and it reflects the range of interests of the staff, as well as our desire to offer a broad and varied program for students. We also have, John, I'll mention, this is your project we had for the MLitt art history this year, a new course called Art and Place that was a team taught course looking across different chronological and geographical periods, but thinking in particular about the relationship between art and place. So there are courses that are team taught as well as individually taught, and can be thematic as well as being focused on a particular area or time period or particular materials or techniques. So it just depends on what we decide to put together each year. Okay, maybe this might be a good opportunity.
And that is a course that will...
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, John, what did you say?
No, it's okay.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. Let's move on. It's more important to hear from students.
Yes, the students are who everyone really wants to hear from. We know this. So if we could maybe just ask our student panelists, I'm going to ask all of you the same question, which is, why did you choose either the MLitt art history or the technical art history, sort of whichever course you're on, whichever program, why did you pick it? So maybe Francesca, can I start with you?
So I chose to do the art history MLitt because I did my undergraduate at Glasgow, and I did history and history of art as a joint honours, and I just found that I really, really loved history of art, and to be honest, I liked it a lot more than history, and I just felt like I wanted to go straight into it, so I didn't take a break after my undergraduate, and I also picked it because I liked the course options as well, and I knew as well the lecturer that supervised my dissertation, who is Anthe, I knew that she was going to be doing a course for the masters, and I really was interested in it because I had taken one of her courses in my undergraduate as well. So.
Fantastic. And yeah, so for people who, just to be aware, Anthe Andronicou, who Francesca's mentioning, is a specialist in late medieval and early modern European art, but in a global context. And she's the one who taught that Mediterranean Encounters course this year, and was, who Francesca was referring to. Okay, fantastic. Next, maybe I'll go, actually, can I mix it up and go to Faith next?
Yeah, I chose this course because I did my undergrad in fine art up in Aberdeen at Grey School of Art, and I'm not the most, people are going to disagree with me when I say this, but I'm not the most creative person. I can copy things very well, but I'm not, when it comes up with my own idea. So contemporary art wasn't really for me. So I thought a technical art history interdisciplinary course would be the right thing, because you're following rules but also creating things at the same time in regards to reconstructions. I also thought I wanted to go into easel painting conservation, and this was a good kind of stepping stone from a fine art degree, I thought. So that's why I chose it.
Excellent. Carolyn?
I chose this course specifically because in my undergrad, I didn't have my main degree in art history, so I wanted to do a master's course that was a bit more broad, like you spoke about. And I met with John prior to committing to the program and heard about the different course options. So that was quite appealing to me, as well as the work placement.
Great. Michelle?
My undergraduate degree is in art history and math, and I've always been more interested in the science-y aspect of art history stuff. And I took a couple of years in between my undergraduate degree and coming to Glasgow, and I looked at an array of schools, or like what type of course would be good to mix these two different interests of mine. And I wasn't convinced that I wanted to do a straight like conservation aspect. I'm really interested in theory. And so this program kind of checked all those boxes for me, as far as there's a lot of science and technical experimentation, but a lot of philosophy and art, history, and culture at the same time. Also, honestly, it being 1 year instead of a 2-year master's program was a big draw for me. Just being an international student. Yeah.
Well, that's actually, since you guys, many of you answered what was going to be my next question, which is about what you studied at undergrad and how it related to what you decided to study at postgrad. But you've just touched on, Michelle, I think something that our audience might be interested in was just your experience, and this would apply to Carolyn as well, as international students, and how you found the transition between coming from the States and US system to the British system. How has that been? Either Carolyn maybe first, and then Michelle.
I think it's been quite okay for me. Yeah, I think maybe sometimes there's some confusions that come up with the grading system and all of that. But as far as the courses and not studying art history as my main degree before coming here, it was a very easy transition. What with the requirement of research methods in the first semester. That was quite helpful. And then also the art and place course as well, which was such a good introduction to Glasgow too.
Yeah, well, you guys got to go. I'll put you on the spot again, Carolyn, if you can mention the trip that you all took, because it's not on our Instagram, but I wish it was, to the Highlands.
Yeah, we took a trip with John up to Dunkeld for one of our courses, which was quite nice. And that was my first experience really traveling outside of Glasgow, in Scotland, and going to the Highlands.
And seeing Ewan McGregor, but we can't promote that as something that will happen every year. That was just a random coincidence. Celebrity spottings. Michelle, what about you? Have you found the transition?
It was pretty smooth. I have previously lived outside of the US, so I was familiar with the visa process. And as getting the visa and everything onto the online portal for the university is pretty clear, and there's a lot of help regarding like who to access for that. And as far as academic transition, there's a lot of similarities. There's, I think, something that I wish I did when I first got here. There was like an introductory writing course for masters, especially if you did not study previously in the UK. And so there was a little bit of a writing change, like how I write changed based on how I've previously written in the US. There's just like different formal standards, but us, like, it is pretty easy to catch on. So it wasn't like a big issue or change. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we had a question, actually, John, can I put you on the spot and ask you if you don't mind fielding the question that we've got about applications? I'm not sure how specific we could be about what makes a competitive application to the program, but since I think you'd be more familiar than I would about what the application process looks like, if you have any thoughts.
Yes, I can only really speak about the art history program, less about the technical art history program. But the first thing to say, of course, is that we're not necessarily expecting students to have had their first degree in art history. That a number of our students do come from areas in cognate areas, and that part of the program, for instance, is we bear that in mind. So the course Art and Place, for instance, which Carolyn mentioned earlier as a kind of introduction to her first semester, was very much geared towards that idea that, you know, we've got a mix of experiences in the class, that some students will have an art history background, some less so. So it's very much, you know, thought about in those terms. So thinking about that, don't be put off by the fact that, oh, I don't have an art history background. We welcome people from different areas, different experiences to come to the program. They bring different skills. As Diana said, you know, it's very much an interdisciplinary approach that we take at Glasgow. So we very much welcome those kinds of other alternative perspectives. And so you can make something of that, I think, in your applications, if that helps, I think.
And I think also it would be, and absolutely, it's very much the case that we don't expect students to have, you know, done art history as their first degree for undergrad, and students come with all different kinds of backgrounds in terms of the subjects that they've studied. For the technical art history, I know, was it Michelle, you were saying that you did maths? Yes. So I don't think that there's a science requirement or anything like that for technical art history. My understanding is that the requirements are pretty similar across the two programs. So maybe if you had, either of you, Faith or Michelle, any thoughts on whether a science or any kind of math preparation beforehand was useful or necessary. It's not a requirement, but any perspective you have on that for the technical art history degree.
Just coming from a fine art background, it's a very different writing style, and I got a bit of a shock, I think, after my first essay hand-in with the flowery language that's expected, and maybe fine art writing or more philosophical writing with contemporary.
I think we've got a lockup. Is that just on my end?
No, I lost it as well.
Okay. Oh, you're back. Okay, good.
I think we're back.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very much like it's almost like you have to write your essays like a science report, which was very much a shock for me. I think we had to take a little quiz before our the first time we even met our lecturers, and it was a quiz about physics. And I had a bit of panic thinking I haven't done this since I was 15 years old. So I would just say, if you're coming from a more fine art background or another discipline, look at how the science side, or the side that you're maybe less familiar with, because it is very interdisciplinary. But I don't know what Michelle maybe has something else that.
Yeah, I did come with some just like general chemistry background. I had also previously taken a chemistry for conservation course, so I was a bit more prepared maybe than Faith for like the chemistry science aspect. It's definitely not a requirement. And I know some other people in our course did not have that in their background, and you learn a lot of it in the first term. At like we talk about how like pigments are made, and we go through the process of making them. So you kind of learn chemistry in a more like written manner than I would say like a science class. But it definitely helped having some familiarity, but it's not required.
Excellent. Thank you. So yeah, I think it just depends. Everybody's going to come into the program with a different background, and it's a matter of I think recognizing it's good. I think with particularly the technical art history, perhaps thinking about beforehand which part of the interdisciplinary program might play to your strengths, and where you might want to do some quick learning from your classmates or from your lecturers or in advance. Brilliant, thank you. One question I think came in as an email question, which was about whether Glasgow is a good place to see art and exhibitions. And the answer to that is yes. Glasgow is an excellent place to see art and exhibitions. I think it's a UNESCO City of Culture. And it is, especially in the West End and the areas down in Finnieston, south of the West End, there's lots of, and the south side of the city, there's lots of galleries, there's museums, there's a whole contemporary art scene. There's just always something going on. I don't know if any of you guys, our student panelists, have had a chance to get out and explore within the city. Anything that you'd like to share, but it certainly, there's a ton always happening. There's exhibitions and at all of the different museums and galleries, constantly, basically. Any local interactions, anything that sticks out in your minds? It's okay if not.
I have something. There's a little art gallery that's pretty close to the Kelvin Grove Art Center, or the Kelvin Grove Art Museum, and it's kind of on a side street. It's by a lot of student accommodation, so it's close by. But it has pretty regularly just weekends of kind of local artists can just rent the space and have little pop-up shows. And I think it's like the New Glasgow Society is what it may be called. And I've just been able to stop in on my way to class or home and just talk to artists. So there's lots of I've never gotten that experience before. And there's always new people in there. So that's a really accessible art space.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's one of the really nice things about the West End is you can kind of just wander around in these little streets and see all the street art. There's different kinds of things happening. And now, especially the weather's so nice at this point in the year, it's absolutely gorgeous today. There's everywhere, every park, every area is going to be packed with people. Any other thoughts from the rest of you? I don't know if I cut someone off right beforehand. No worries if not.
Francesca. I'm sorry.
No, do you want to go first? That's fine.
You go first.
You have also in Kelvin Hall, sometimes your lecturers will take you there for special sessions where you can kind of go behind the scenes and see things that are in storage that might not always be out on display. And sometimes you even get to handle the objects as well. Similarly, with special collections in the library, you can go and see things like illuminated manuscripts and things like that. But also nearby, you have the Museum Resource Centre in Nits Hill, and they do like free guided tours, and sometimes they do specialised tours on what they have in storage at that particular time.
Great. Faith?
I was basically going to say the same thing, but just with the Kelvin Centre, the accessibility is great. We had a conservator in working on painting for a couple of weeks ago, just a freelance conservator, and the painting that she was working on, I then went into the collections a couple of days ago to look at some Jacobite prints, and the painting that she was working on was just hung on the wall. It's just weird, like you're very immersed in it, and the trust that they have with you being around these paintings kind of shocked me. Not that it should shock you, but the accessibility is very good. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially, I love it's good that you mentioned, Francesca, the books too, the Glasgow Library, which I hadn't mentioned before. It just has an extraordinary collection as an Italian Renaissance person, I love the 15th and 16th century manuscripts and printed books, and I brought students there, and it's brilliant. And you can touch them as long as you don't have brightly colored nail polish on. You can touch them without gloves and really get a feel for the books. It's extraordinary to have everything sort of right at your fingertips. We have a question in the chat about placements. So that's a good opportunity to talk about placements, which are part of both programs. So if could I just ask the students who were on placements this year to maybe just talk a little bit about your experience and how the placement went and what you were up to. So maybe I'll start with Carolyn.
Yeah, I had my placement at the Royal Botanic Garden in Edinburgh, which was quite nice for me because I was able to integrate some science and art together, and it related to some work I had previously. And for the requirements for the work placement, you go about 20 times, I think. So it's roughly like 2 days a week. And yeah, so I commuted to Edinburgh 2 days a week for that. And I did a range of tasks, which was quite nice. Like I worked on a display, and then I also was doing work in Excel and cataloging artworks and doing some basic condition reporting as well. So it was quite nice to do a range of things. And I really recommend for incoming students to apply if they're interested in this.
Great. Michelle?
Yeah, I was at the archives and special collections at the university's library, which was a great experience. The process for our placements was there was only 6 students in our course, and you apply, like they gave you a list of 6 opportunities. You kind of chose your top 3, and then like submitted a little resume and cover letter, and then got matched to an option. I loved working at archives and special collections. it was fantastic, and it was my third choice. So like all of the options are really good. And I was working on a 4th century piece of parchment, which I had no experience with before, and it was learning about imaging techniques. And so I got hands-on experience with the technology in the Kelvin Center, along with like object handling between 2 different like the library versus the Kelvin Center, and like being on 2 teams essentially. And it was a very hands-on experience.
Right. And you highlight something probably should mention is that the technical art history course is a smaller course than it's capped at a relatively small scale because it has a lot of lab work and so it is a different scale than the art history MLitt, which is somewhat larger, although not that much larger. Was it Faith? Did you do one? Yes.
Yeah, I did mine at the Royal Highland Fusiliers Museum, and it was great. It was my first choice, so I got my first choice. I was basically given a task of researching a painting, which initially didn't have an artist attributed to it, and turns out it was done by a relatively well-known artist called Cohen Dobson from the Dobson artist family from Edinburgh. So you just never know what you're going to find in small museums in Glasgow. And it was great. It's now a dissertation topic. I think another person on our course is doing it for their dissertation, doing full technical analysis on it, which I couldn't complete because it had to stay in the museum. But yeah, it was great. I just got to research this painting. The museum had its own library, so I was looking at the war diaries and stuff from then. Yeah, it was good.
Great, thank you. And I think this sort of ties into the question that was asked about the placements. If any of you want to speak about this, and you don't have to, but if you have part-time jobs, if anyone does and would like to speak about how you balance that with the demands of either the program or the placements. If you don't want to speak about that, that's totally fine. I just know that that's going to be something that people might be interested in hearing about if anyone has had that experience while here.
I can speak on that briefly. I had a very part-time job while doing my work placement, so I think it worked out nicely because I was commuting to Edinburgh 2 days per week. And because I was coming all the way from Glasgow when I was at my work placement, I did stay for about 6 hours. So I think it depends. Like, I think maybe some students weren't there quite as many hours, but I think it is quite manageable. And the assignments that come along with the work placement, like the research poster and the portfolio that you write afterwards, like a few weeks after completing the placement itself. So it's spread out quite nicely.
Thanks, Carolyn. Anyone else? No worries. Okay, we had another question. Oh, there was a question about, again, not if you have studied classics and music and you haven't formally done art history or art. Again, that's not something to be concerned about. We wouldn't expect people to necessarily have studied art history at undergraduate. So I think, depending on your particular case and your situation, that shouldn't be a problem at all. And classics and music are obviously very closely related to history of art. So yeah, I don't think that should be an issue. There are others. So we have a question for prospective students who have a strong interest in a particular faculty member's research. Is it appropriate or encouraged to reach out to that professor before applying? Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Send them an email. That's totally fine. It's always great to hear, or at least I can speak for my own self. I always like to hear from students who are interested in studying a particular area or just want to ask questions about that area or my research or my teaching or anything like that. I can't speak for all of my colleagues, but I would think that would be something that they would welcome. So yeah, I would encourage. The email addresses are all on our profiles on our websites, and especially if you have specific questions. John, did you want to come in on that?
I was just going to say the same, that yeah, I'm perfectly happy for people to approach me, and also if as the as the convener of the program, if someone is unsure if an area of your interest would be covered, if there's an expertise, then please do contact me, and I'd be happy to advise and maybe direct you to the appropriate member of staff if that's the case. So yeah, that's certainly.
I think you're freezing up a little bit too. Oh, the internet, it's so much fun. But yes, please do get in touch with members of staff. We absolutely encourage that. Another question I thought might be useful to maybe discuss is just assessment and the kind of coursework that y'all have been experiencing during your time as students on these programs. So maybe if you could talk just a little bit about the transition between, again, undergraduate and postgraduate in terms of your assessments and the kinds of things that you've been doing. Obviously, it's quite different when you're moving from UG to postgraduate. So maybe if I'll start with Michelle. I keep switching things around, so I'm not always asking the same person first.
Yeah, we had most of our assessments were a presentation, or there was a topic that you were given on, like, kind of with a specific goal, researching technical aspects of artists' work. And we would give a 10-minute presentation on research that we've done so far. And then we would get some feedback, and then we would have a essay after it. That was we had that for all of our courses. It felt pretty, that was very similar to my undergraduate experience. So yeah, it's a lot of just like writing, I guess. There's no like sit down tests, which is nice.
That's a shame. Maybe Francesca on the MLitt art history side.
The assignments were pretty similar to the undergraduate for me. Presentations about 10 to 15 minutes long, and then essays as well were just slightly longer than what you would do at undergraduate. But we also did some things like exhibition reviews, book reviews, and then quite a useful one was in Mediterranean Encounters. We did a project where, as a class, we curated an exhibition together. And then we had to present on why we had selected specific objects for the exhibition. So that was quite different.
Carolyn or Faith, did you have other experiences or perspectives on assessments?
Yeah, Francesca summarized it quite nicely. There's like, of course, the essays, but then also things like the exhibition review, which were quite unique, I guess, to the program. And then as part of the work placement, we also kept like a work diary, which will be submitted as part of the work placement to be graded. So yeah, just keeping like a very detailed log of what we accomplished as well.
Great. Faith, anything?
I think Michelle covered it, but yeah, I came from a very different undergrad, so I can't really speak to the transition maybe as in a typical sense. I would say reading is so important. If you're not good at reading, get a read aloud thing if it helps you, because understanding the structure of how things in your field are written is really helpful. That was my main feedback in the first semester, that my structure wasn't quite right and everything I was saying was okay, but it just wasn't in the right order or something. So I'd say reading is very important, and you generally, without even thinking about it, end up writing the way that you're reading things. So that would probably be what I would say.
Good. Yeah, good advice. I think. And it is, it's one of those things, particularly across, technical art history and art history and other related disciplines as well, as they do all have their own conventions, their sort of way of organizing the argument, how you bring in the evidence. And that's, part of the training that you get in a postgraduate program is to kind of learn the particular conventions of your fields or your subfield. If you, so I don't think we have a current question. Please do put questions in the chat if you got them. We've got maybe a bit more time left, but definitely time for questions. So one question I thought I would ask our student panelists again is if you have any thoughts, and I'm asking this realizing that this may not be what you want to think about right now, but about life after this program that you're doing. Have you thought about what kind of careers you might be interested in moving on to or further study? Does anyone want to volunteer any perspectives on that, on post Glasgow life?
I initially thought I wanted to go into painting conservation, and literally maybe up until about 2 weeks ago, I thought that. It's still on my radar, but what I'm kind of realizing is that I would have to go and do another master's. So I'm kind of looking at more research-based stuff, maybe even I don't know, basically.
Fair enough.
I think this course is good for that, though, the technical art history course, in the sense that it's so multidisciplinary that you do get to try everything from almost archaeological kind of studying to more art history, because we do study objects as well in technical art history. I know somebody did their placement on on a candlestick. So you can do anything basically. It is just a general science, I guess.
That's great. Thank you. Anyone else? Future plans, possibilities?
I have I have possibilities, I guess. Coming into this program, I also thought I wanted to do more conservation work. I didn't really know what my specialty, if I wanted to have a specialty, because often people do have their specialty, whether it's easel painting or paper. Through this course, I've found that I really enjoy studying furniture and more craft based than furniture, tools, utensils. That's a special interest of mine. So I may be going down looking at just jobs that focus on that. I have a little bit more of a narrow search when I'm looking for things, but yeah, I don't really have an idea of what I want to do or anything. So
You got time. That's great. Thank you both. So one thing I think maybe might be useful for the audience. Oh, are any of you thinking about applying to PhD programs? Not at the moment?
Not right now, but I do think I want to do a PhD at some point. But I've gone straight from secondary school to undergrad to master's, and I want to work for a bit first, I think.
I think that's good advice. Yeah, I think everybody's path is different, but I think as someone who also took off a bit of time between my undergraduate and postgraduate, I think that was very useful for me. And depending on, some people are so focused straight out of undergrad that it's no problems, go straight into school or go straight from a MA or MLitt to PhDs. And for others, you need to kind of take a slightly different path. And I think there's all different kinds of paths, especially to a PhD. I think in terms of just my perspective for for those who are, we do have students who go on, and John perhaps can speak to this as well, from the MLitt to PhDs. Many have done that at Glasgow. And I think one of the things that's most important are the relationships that you build with the members of staff, while you're working through your coursework, and especially in your dissertation, because part of, when we're talking about a PhD program here in the UK, it is a research degree. So in the US, it's a little bit different. A PhD has a coursework component and a research component, and it's a longer program. But in the UK, the PhD programs are 4 years, 3-4 years, so shorter, and you basically, you're working quite closely with your supervisory team. And you're basically focused entirely on independent research. So those relationships can be really important, and they're fostered during the MLitt. I don't know, John, if you have any perspectives on the MLitt to PhD route.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of PhD students at the moment that I'm supervising who both came through the master's program at different points. The one went straight from her master's into her PhD. The other one took several years before coming back, because she went and had a family and things. So as Diana says, there's various routes through. It's also worth pointing out, though, that our students have had a variety of different careers. Some have gone into PhD and had academic careers, but we've also had students go into museums and various national institutions, for instance, as well as the commercial art world as well. So there's a whole variety there's no one route through. There's lots and lots of options that students have and have taken from the degree.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, I think we are running out of time, so we'll probably start wrapping things up. I wanted to thank everyone for being here and listening to our discussion, and in particular, we've got, so if there are any last minute questions, please put them in the chat right now. Otherwise, we'll probably sign off in a minute. I don't know if, as we're closing, if any of our student panelists would have any advice for applicants, anything you kind of wish you knew before you applied that you might advise someone applying to one of these courses to think about?
I do. At least as far as with the technical art history, being curious and like a self-starter is really important for this program. Being ready to like put in a lot of work, especially if you are unfamiliar with some of the like aspects of like what goes into making a artwork. You don't have to have a lot of specifics, I guess, but like knowing that like maybe about paint, maybe you already have like a special interest, really being passionate about it and kind of striving to push yourself. There's in our program specifically, there's a lot of you're independently working and you have to want to be doing the work to be able to do well in this course. So like really, if being excited about what you're learning and being ready to put in the work is definitely something I would recommend for this course.
That's good advice probably for most forms of postgraduate study. What about the rest of you? Any tips or advice for applicants? Anything you wish you knew? Anything you wish you'd done beforehand?
The reading for classes is so important, especially if you're coming in it from a less experienced place, because otherwise the actual lecture will just go over your head. Even if there isn't a lot of reading that you've been given, doing research on the topic yourself, even if you just have a couple of notes going into the lecture or questions already written down, being like very proactive in that sense, I think is really important. And it also makes you look engaged and means that you're engaged with the course, and it's helpful.
Great. Francesca or Carolyn, any final?
I would say it's never too early to start your coursework. I think sometimes you can become overwhelmed with it because a lot of the deadlines occur sometimes at the end of the semester, all at the one time. So yeah, it's never too early to start, and just pace yourself throughout.
Carolyn?
Yeah, I think going off of what Francesca just said, the same goes for the dissertation. I think thinking about ideas for that as soon as possible is quite helpful. Yeah, even like before you begin the program, just having something in mind too.
Great. There's a final question about avenues for conference, symposium, seminars during the course of study, and I'll just highlight there in our last couple of minutes the Postgraduate Symposium, which I mentioned very briefly at the top of this discussion, which is something that all of our postgraduate students participate in. It is a kind of formal conference that's coming up in a little bit over a week, actually, where everybody presents in sessions and gets an opportunity to share their work and to have questions asked. And it is a kind of highlight of the year for students, and an opportunity within History of Art to kind of bring all of our different programs together. So that's a kind of formal opportunity for a conference, and that's part of the assessed, it's part of the dissertation in terms of how the dissertation is assessed. So you present your work, and then you do the written presentation, the written dissertation after. So that is one opportunity. There are others. There are calls for papers, there's symposiums, there's lots of stuff going on campus, but that's the sort of big one in terms of History of Art. Excellent. Well, I think we should probably draw things to a close because we are about out of time. Again, thank you all so much for taking the time to learn about our program, and we hope to see many of you on campus soon. I want to huge thanks to all of our student panelists for their wonderful insights. It's super helpful. Thank you to John as well. And if you do have questions about the MLitt art history, John Bonehill, his address is in the chat. You can also look him up on the website. Mark Richter is the director of the Technical Art History program, so you can ask questions directly to him. And any of us, if you can find our email addresses in the Glasgow profile for History of Art, please do send us emails, questions. We're happy to help. Thank you all. Bye.